Hours, Wade, Bill, Pierre, Harold, Wade, Bill, Pierre, Jesse.
Can you hear me, Wayne?
I can, Pierre.
Okay, that's good news.
Looks like everybody's here.
Is Jesse going to be able to be here?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think she's working
the election there.
yeah, working the elections.
Last I heard, she didn't know whether she'd be able to be here or not. But I was wondering.
Tracy?
Yes,
Are
I'm
you there?
here.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm having trouble with that file.
Okay, well, I'll give it a try. We'll see what happens.
Let me see.
Okay, we're going to call to order this meeting of the Winter City Council on Tuesday, November 3rd at 6:30 p.m. First, we'll do a roll call. Tracy?
Councilmember Anderson?
Here.
Councilmember Lauren? Councilmember New?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi?
Here.
Mayor Cowan?
Here. Okay, next we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Tina, will you lead us in the pledge?
Be glad to. I pledge
Allegiance
to the flag
of the United
United
States
States
of
of
America
America,
and
to the republic
for which it
for which
stands,
it stands, one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
justice for all. Thank you very much. That's always a joy on Zoom. That's for sure.
we stand.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. Before we do the approval of the agenda, I'll just remind everybody, due to the governor's orders, this meeting is being conducted on Zoom. And anybody from the public that wishes to speak on any item, we will allow you to do so. And you can indicate by waving a hand or using the raise your hand icon, and we'll call on you. And we'll get through this the best we can here. Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, this is Iris. Yay.
Yes, go ahead.
There is an item to be added to the agenda. Under Government Code Section 54954.2E2, if there is an item that council action and it's of an urgent nature and the item came to the attention of the staff after the agenda had been published, you can add an item to the agenda if there is either 2/3 of the entire council or all 4 of you approve adding that item to the agenda. And the item is a contract with Yolo County for CARES funding in the amount of $200,000. The reason for the urgency is that the money has to be committed and spent before the
And we'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda with adding the urgent item as discussion item number 3.
And so moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember New,
Second.
and we have a second by Councilmember Anderson. Tracy, will you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lauren, Councilmember New,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi,
Aye.
Mayor Cowan.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously with 1 absent. Okay, next, council staff comments. Councilmember Anderson.
I'm excited to report.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember New.
Thank you. On October 22nd, I had a county city 2x2 meeting. We discussed COVID-19, the I-505 overpass study, and there was a mention of some refuse disposal, which turned out that it wasn't really discussed. On the 16th, I had a phone meeting with James Corliss, the CEO of SACOG, about the green zones. And on the 23rd, I had a phone meeting with him again about green zone. On the 26th, another phone meeting about green zone. And in between each of those meetings, I was calling Shelley, trying to get information so that I can get it back to James, because they're wanting us to apply for a grant. They think that we should be in the application zone. I had talked to John about it before he left, but he had a lot of things going on at the last minute, and so it didn't happen then. And then I talked to James Corliss and said, we're really understaffed and it's going to be really hard to write a grant. So Shelley may tell you more about it later, but it turns out through all the negotiating, and I was actually going to write something and see if Shelley approved it. And then it turned out that the CEO called Shelley and arranged to have one of the staff members from SACOG help us out. So they're helping us out and Shelley may have more information about that. On the 28th of the month, I met with Yolo County Housing Board. We honored the retiree. I've been with the Housing Commission for 43 years, and then the other big thing that happened was Yolo County Housing joined the statewide Community Development Authority, which will give us more information and possibly more money, which is always good. And the last thing I did was this morning, I met with Shelley on Zoom, and we discussed tonight's agenda. And finally, there were also several phone calls and emails about the pension bond, which came to me, so I helped vote. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi.
Thank you, Mayor. On October 28th, I met with the mayor as well as Chris Turkovich and the city manager, Shelley Gumby, to discuss the prioritizing use of some of the COVID-19 CARES Act funding that we will be getting from the county. On the 28th, I also attended the 2x2 with the city and the school district, mainly the school district talking about their plans for reopening their schools. And it won't be as soon as they had initially anticipated. I think they planned before school started that they might open after Thanksgiving, and now it looks like it'll be after the first of the year, depending on the conditions. That's what they're planning for, I believe. On the 2nd of November, I met with the city manager for the agenda review. And this morning I sat in on the Yolo County Board of Supervisors meeting to see what they were discussing. They had some very long discussions. Part of what they did discuss was the current, where we're at in our tier for the COVID, that they had a report from the county health officer on where we're at in our tier. So at this point, we're still in the red. We'll see where we're at next week. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. As already mentioned, on the 22nd, I was on a Zoom 2x2 with Councilmember New. And on the 28th, as mentioned, I was on the meeting with Mayor Pro Tem, and also on the 28th, I was on a Zoom for the VCE subcommittee. And then yesterday, I had a call with the interim city manager for tonight's meeting. And then I've had several meetings and calls throughout the last couple of weeks with some of the business owners, mostly Chris Turkovich, with the Downtown Business Association and the Mayor Pro Tem, working on the best uses for the COVID funds, which we'll be discussing a little bit later. So thank you, everybody, for all your hard work and time, all these assignments. And
Mayor?
that, yes.
Excuse me, Mayor.
I
I omitted to report that yesterday I had a pre-agenda review meeting with the acting city manager. So
Okay.
I want to report that.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up is we have public comment. And this is an opportunity for anybody from the public to address the council on items which are not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody that would like to make public comment tonight on non-agendized items? Tracy, do we have any?
Yes, we have
Hands up.
Kate Laddish.
Okay, Kate, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Callen and council members. Kate Laddish, 400 Morgan Street, number 21. And this would be the end of the swim season wrap up. Thank you. And so really, I would like to start by thanking the city manager and the city council and former city manager John Dunleavy and city staff for everything that they did to make it so that we could have a swim season this year. I think that it ended up being essentially 2 swim seasons, both of which required redesigning everything. And so a very big hats off to Diana Tafoya and Tracy Jensen for everything that they did with that. First with reorganizing things at the beginning of the year, and then after the pandemic happened and council voted to have funds available so that there could be some swimming. Then really just thoroughly redesigning it, coming up with a protocol that worked for COVID-19. And we had people swimming who had never been to the pool before, and people doing lap swimming. And Diana really figured out different ways that not only could you have adult lap swim, but you could also have some kids who are lap swimmers there as well, and kind of space things out with some times. And it was a tremendous resource. And so thank you so much to everybody who made that possible. It's very much appreciated. And I'm already looking forward to when it reopens. The last day was on Saturday. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Looks like Tina is waving her hand.
Nope.
No?
I'm saying thank you, Kate.
Oh, okay. Tracy, do we have anybody else that wants to speak in public comment?
No, I don't see anybody.
Okay, then we'll move on to the consent calendar. Shelley?
So good evening, council. The first item on the consent calendar is resolutions. The first item on the consent calendar would actually be the minutes from the last agenda.
Excuse me, Shelley, and with one addition to the minutes, which is reflect that the appointment of the new city manager was by unanimous vote, and that a copy of her contract will be attached to the minutes, because it was also approved, and it was approved in closed session and then announced publicly.
Mayor?
Go
I
ahead.
have one slight correction to the minutes as well, and it has to do with that same item. I think it's on page 8, just when Bobby got on and spoke. She's listed as Bobby, McKinney. It should be Bobby Peckham. That's the only thing, just very small thing. We can correct it out on the record.
Okay, thank you. So we got a couple of corrections to the minutes. Okay, Shelley?
Okay, item B is Resolution 2020-56, authorizing the city manager or designee to execute supplemental agreements. This is related to the $250,000 grant for the 505 overpass, and it's a procedural item that needs to be taken care of with Caltrans. Caltrans requires a resolution on file. Item C is authorization to execute a contract with Asphalt Impressions to paint and stripe a new basketball court at Blue Oak Park. Item D is authorization to purchase a CalSense irrigation controller for Blue Oak Park. Item E is a contract authorization to enter into a contract with Vintage Paving to pay the basketball court at Blue Oak Park. Item F is a contract authorization to enter into a contract with Ample Electric to supply power for lighting at Blue Oak Park. All those Blue Oak Park things are related to the presentation that Eric provided last council meeting. And item G is a request for $1,500 in seed money for the Winners Community Dinner for Thanksgiving.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other council comments or concerns, we can entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
New, here, moves for approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember New.
That's with the changes to the minutes.
With, as changed, as corrected.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion by Councilmember New and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi to approve the consent calendar with the changes to the minutes. Tracy, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lauren, Councilmember New,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi,
Aye.
Mayor Cowan.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, presentations. Speeding on Neiman Street. I believe we got Chief Miller and the city engineer, Alan Mitchell, that are going to enlighten us on driving on Neiman Street.
Not too lightning, but the mayor, council members, interim city manager, and members of the community. We received complaints again about speeding on Union Street. Last year, we also received numerous complaints about Union Street. The police department responded by doing what's called directed enforcement in the area. And what that basically means is officers were directed by me to spend time on Union Street conducting traffic enforcement during their unobligated patrol time. Interim city manager asked that I give a presentation about what occurred up there during that directed enforcement, as well as just speeding on Union Street in general. And Tracy, next slide, please. So kind of give you a primer on the speed laws. First of all, speed limits are established in residences by what's called prima facie speed limit, 25 miles per hour. That's the vast majority of our streets here in the city of Winters. So because it's a residential neighborhood, we call it the driver training, 25 miles per hour, prima facie. It's just assumed that it is a 25 mile zone, whether it's posted or not posted. Now, roadways that are deemed the arterial roadways require what's called an interior and traffic survey, we call it ETNS. We also refer to a radar survey. And that's to establish the speed limit and enforcement units. This is a process that we underwent with, about 2 years ago on Grant Avenue, which is Highway 128, the Caltrains that we that our engineers did on railroad for us. Those are only 2 roadways currently in Winters that require this ETNS in order to conduct radar enforcement. I said, feel very wild. You just one night and before yourself to sleep, knock yourself out. Next slide, please. So a lot of folks, I try to explain this, and there's a lot of confusion. So California's basic speed law is established under California Good Coast 22.3. And toward the folks, obviously, agree with me, no person shall drive a vehicle on a highway at a speed greater than is reasonable or prudent, having due regard for weather, visibility, the traffic on, and the surface and width of the highway, and no event of speed which endangers the safety of persons or property. You notice there's nothing in there about what the posted speed limit is. So under this section, again, the basic speed law, the officer must have particular facts in order to cite the driver, if they're going to testify in court what they observed and how it was unsafe to travel on that particular highway, roadway, at that time. Right? So it's not as clear as 30 or 35 miles or 40 miles per hour is a violation of basic speed law. Now, conversely, it can be a violation to go 5 miles an hour on a 25 mile an hour roadway. Case in point, I did a citation one time, had somebody hanging out of a sunroof as they're going down the road. Now these days they cars, but this was a sunroof. And so the passenger got a ticket for not having their seatbelt on, but the driver wasn't their parent and wasn't responsible for the passenger, but they got a ticket for going at unsafe speed because it was unsafe to go 5 miles per hour with somebody hanging out over a sunroof. So hopefully that can kind of clarify what we're talking about. So the totality of the circumstances at that time, the vehicle is observed. Okay, next slide, please. So in September 2019, we asked Alan Mitchell, our engineer, to contract to do a ETNS, or the typo there, the engineering traffic study, and do these complaints. And also we thought it would be a good time to get a benchmark for the traffic that was going through on Union Street. We just opened up Main Union Street and the roundabout. So it was basically I want to call it a shortcut, but it's another path for residents that are buying houses up in our northwest sector to get to their houses. So we want to kind of a benchmark of where it currently stood. And we've done this in pretty short order of opening up that intersection. So this was done just by an engineering firm, so it wasn't by the police cars or anything like that. Just, if you have any questions on specific technicality, you can ask Alan how it's done. But it was conducted over 7 days. There were 2 different locations on Union Street that was conducted. It was also conducted for east and westbound traffic. Each of those reports for those 2 locations are 56 pages long of spreadsheets. And I provided the website. We have it on our website if anyone wants to pour over that data. Again, it's 102 pages of spreadsheets. So it's really entertaining, if you really care. Next slide, please. So here's what the findings show. And this is a cumulative of the 2 locations. So there is obviously some overlap. It's quite a lot of times the same vehicle passing by the same location. But a total of 9,012 vehicles were reported traveling on the east and westbound. And again, bear that in mind that is a car that's passing location 1 and location 2 will be counted twice. So what the findings showed was that 2.3% of all vehicles were going less than 15 miles per hour, 14.7, 15 to 19, 30.9 were going 20 to 24, 31.7% were going 25 to 29, 15.7 to 30 to 34, only 3.9 were going over 35 miles per hour, and only 0.7% of all vehicles were going over 40 miles per hour on the stretch of road. So fully 61, 75% of vehicles are going between 20 and 35 miles per hour on that road. Next slide, please. So during the direct enforcement, obviously there was a police presence up there on the patrol cars. But we also had our radar trailer deployed up there. So what we again asked them to dedicate their time, they spent a total of 15 staff hours on Union Street dedicated to traffic enforcement. enforcement. The hours vary, depending on the shift and availability. We have approximately 809 vehicles observed. Not to double up with the numbers like we saw in the traffic survey. Some miles are very active. They're like 109 cars were seen, 42 cars were seen, et cetera. And some just did the approximate. Only 2 citations were issued during this time. One was going for 42 miles per hour, the other one for 45 miles per hour, and 2 warnings were given for 38 miles per hour. And the officers just felt the basic speed law criteria not met. All those vehicles were under 35 miles per hour, and the vast majority of the vehicles were 25 to 30 miles per hour, with 2 approaching 35 miles per hour. So to put that in context, we were down to 0.2% of vehicles traveling at over 40 miles per hour. And this was also done by radar and LiDAR. Next slide, please, Tracy. So talking with Alan Mitchell, and I'm hoping Alan to be able to chime in here with a little bit more information. What we've done is, one of my recommendations is more speed limit signage. I think there's only one sign on that stretch that indicates 25 miles per hour. Now we do also have a radar sign on the post that is up and working, but some more signage definitely would benefit the area. We'll continue to do periodic use of our radar trailer and periodic record enforcement, like we're doing. But again, we're having obligations throughout town. Other people are requesting enforcement in the area. When we dedicate our staff and resources to one area, we're leaving the rest of the city under control. So it really does take quite a bit of our resources to do direct enforcement. The other concern is, especially at this point in time with COVID, when we do direct enforcement, we are having a lot more contact with the public. So one of my officers is now doing 10 traffic stops to even get verbal warning, plus 10 additional exposures to members of the public that is exposing our officers, and then vice versa. If our officer is non-symptomatic COVID carrier, he just exposed 10 members of the public. So that has definitely been kind of a cooling effect on our direct enforcement efforts. The officers have still been directed from day one of COVID to take action for public safety issues, safety blatant violations, DUI enforcement, et cetera, which has gone pretty much unabated. And then I'll turn it over to Alan about other traffic calming measures.
Okay, thank you,
Alan
Chief.
Mitchell, Alan Mitchell, City Engineer, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I just want to mention the city's neighborhood traffic management calming program aims to make existing streets like Lehman more livable by reducing traffic speeds if and when a problem is identified. So we look very closely at those situations. There are traffic calming techniques, measures that reduce speeding problems. These techniques range from the traditional, such as striping and signage, which Chief discussed, radar trailers and police enforcement. Those are the typical things that we want to concentrate on and really use those at the beginning to really try to mitigate any perceived or real speeding. Then there's the non-traditional, such as speed humps and chokers. Throughout town, there are some speed humps that have been implemented by the city council. Implementing any of these techniques requires consideration of the positive and negative measures. For instance, the speed hump may reduce traffic speed, but it also creates a barrier or something that police and fire have to deal with as they're responding to calls. That creates concerns with bicyclists that may not see that in the dark and may become injured. So, you need to look at the positives and negatives. From an engineering standpoint, there's really nothing out there that warrants additional measures. As an city engineer, we typically look at volumes. We look at conflicts, potential conflicts like intersections where it's a four-way stop or a three-way stop, and there's just a lot of traffic coming from all directions. So we put in stop signs or a signal or a roundabout, for instance. But in this case, there's really nothing that warrants additional measures, but I do recommend that the city do look at speed limit signs, additional. What's unique out there too is it's a school zone, so we really want to concentrate on making sure that that's safe. So when the kids do come back to school eventually, that there's no potential for conflict with students and with the driving public. And I think the police department can continue to provide periodic enforcement. You know, I was driving out there and I saw the police vehicle about 100 yards away, and I'll tell you what, it got my attention, and I slowed down from 26 to 25. So, yeah, maybe I was going 36, I don't know, but, you know, I just recommend from an injury standpoint that we continue to implement what we have and really keep an eye on that, because as you know, traffic's going to increase in that area as that northwest area of town develops and a lot more houses are sold. And there's going to be a lot more traffic coming on these types of streets, Anderson, Demon, Grant. So, you know, we want to keep our eyes and ears to the ground and make sure that there isn't an unsafe situation. And if there is, then, you know, we'll address it at that time and using some of these maybe non-traditional measures that I talked about. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, Alan, can you speak to, as far as traffic warnings about stop signs, there's a misconception about use of stop signs for speed control?
Yeah, it's never been in the city engineer's purview to use stop signs for speed control. Stop signs are used to control intersections where there's potentially conflicts between drivers. It's not a speed reduction measure, and that is, in every city I've worked in, that has been the understanding approach. And so in this case, putting stop signs at where Moody Slough intersects with Demon wouldn't be warranted. I wouldn't recommend that. Now, in the past, the city council has moved forward with implementing measures that the city engineer didn't necessarily support or warrant. That's your purview, but it's definitely not a speed control measure.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Is there any questions for staff from anybody on the council before I open it up for any public comment? Councilmember New, go ahead.
Just one question. I was kind of amazed at the cars that were only doing 15 miles an hour when it says vehicles. Did that include bicycles or something other than cars?
No, that was vehicles only. But bear in mind that we have this school just down on that stretch.
Mm-hmm.
So we probably factor in, folks dropping off kids, and things like that would affect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, go ahead.
Mayor, I just want to make a comment on the stop signs as well. I appreciate you bringing that up, Alan. I mean, I've had a lot of people say, oh, we need a stop sign here, we need a stop sign there, and I can attest to the fact that they really don't slow traffic down much, because I live on the corner of an intersection that has stop signs on all four corners. But by the time some people leave the stop sign and they go past my house, they're already in excess of the speed limit. So it might slow them down, but it's not for very long. It really doesn't work for good traffic, overall traffic calming. From my perspective, my observation in front of my house, that's all.
If I can comment on that, from an enforcement standpoint, when you see an unwarranted traffic stop, like Alan said, is to allow traffic onto the traffic. So you have a cross street that has to allow traffic to go through. Well, folks get used to, when it's not warranted, they're not meeting cross traffic. So they start with California won't stop. And before too long, it's human nature. They know no one's coming up. And that's what makes it actually so dangerous from a law enforcement standpoint for traffic collisions, because people become conditioned to not stopping. And then if you get out one time that a car is at that intersection, it causes a collision.
Okay, Tracy, do we have any public that would like to speak to this item? I see Tina with her hand in the air.
Yes.
Tina, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina Loudon, 320 Neiman Street, or I should say Neiman Highway. As Chief Miller knows, we have cars, we have trucks, we have buses, and we have tractors. I think that's where the 15 miles an hour vehicle came in with the tractors. I don't know what the answer is. I do appreciate Chief Miller and all the police department being vigilant on Neiman, because as you know, I've talked about it a lot. What I would like to know is if I had my camera out there and I happen to video somebody that is passing, and this has happened on Neiman, passing somebody else on Neiman in front of the ag building or any place, can I forward that to you, Chief Miller, and can that person get a ticket?
No, they cannot be cited under normal circumstances. If it's an infraction, not committed in officer's presence. And then even for like a citizen's arrest or what's called private person's arrest, which a citizen can do, resident can do for infraction. It would require a positive identification of the driver. So you have to, that's, even if we testify in court, we would say that I contacted the driver. He was identified by his California driver's license. So it makes it impossible to identify somebody like that. However, we just posted on just today on social media, like a kid, a 7-year-old kid was doing donuts around town. So, well, that constitutes reckless driving, which is a misdemeanor. And under California law, we can effect an arrest of a juvenile that's committed a misdemeanor not in our presence, but only for juveniles. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. So even if it was an adult that did a misdemeanor, not committed in our presence, it would take a private person's arrest. We would put the onus off on the private person to establish the probable cause and the identity of the driver.
Okay, thanks.
That makes sense?
It does, I don't like it, but it does. I like to have a radar gun, but they say I can't have it.
Yeah. So even in California, enforcement of speed limits by cameras, like legally for red light cameras, those are legal in California, but speeding cameras are not legal in California.
Okay, this is for Alan Mitchell and regarding the signages for the speed limit. Where are you, Alan? Well, anyway, Alan,
Right here.
oh, there you are. So where would you put these signage? Would you like to have input from some of the people that live on Neiman? I know when after the roundabout, they come down so fast near Rominger. That would be a good spot, and another good spot is at Railroad and Neiman. So there are some areas at the beginning of the highway that we could put it.
Yeah, what I'd ask is that you maybe email the city manager with your recommendations, and we'll work with Public Works to look at locations. The MUTCD, the manual on that kind of stuff, has recommended distances, but you know, it's always up to the government agencies to really understand the situations and you know, put them where they're appropriate. We want to make sure that they're close to the places of entrance, and you know, where people come on at railroad, they want to immediately understand what the speed limit is, so it's in their mind. And then the same down at Main Street. And obviously the school zone is a unique situation, and we need to make sure that there's adequate school signage. And I know there is a new speed limit sign that shows your speed, I think, in that school zone with solar on the top. So that's a new thing. So we'll look at those kinds of opportunities to maybe add some more signs. So let us take a look at that. But if the public has some recommendations, then go ahead and email the city manager and she'll distribute those to Public Works.
Okay, thank you. I know there is another person for Neiman, Elizabeth Nelson. Where are you? Oh, Rudolph too. And who else is from Neiman? Raise your hands. We're very concerned. Where are you, Elizabeth and Mike? And Dave?
Elizabeth,
Okay.
I'm here.
All right, I think Rudolph Muldoon had his hand up to speak. Rudolph?
Good evening, City Council. So in conjunction to what Ms. Loud had indicated earlier, or actually Mr. Mitchell more importantly, Ms. Loud was correct about adding more signage. And Mr. Mitchell, I know you just said email the city manager in regards to this, but I would recommend also box dots being placed. That'd be less constrictive, but potentially rumbles the cars and vehicles enough to know, hey, you should be slowing down. Certainly, that would alleviate some of the issues in regards to choking down first responder vehicles, but certainly would at least notify the driver that maybe their speed may be excessive. Potentially, hey, there's a sign saying 25 miles per hour.
Okay, thank you. Tracy, is there anybody else with a hand up?
Yes, we have Elizabeth Nelson.
I'm sorry, real quick, on, just understand also with those rumble strips and box tops, noise, you will have experienced noise, so that's kind of a trade-off. Residents at all hours of the night are going to hear. So,
Sure.
Thank you, Chief Miller.
Okay, Tracy, who's next?
Elizabeth Nelson.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth
Hi.
Nelson. I live at 404 Neiman. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this issue. Really appreciate it. We moved to Neiman at the very end, the very last day of 2018. When we moved there, we understood what the traffic patterns at that time were, kind of knew it was a little bit, there were times where there were cars going a little fast, knew that with our children being middle school, older elementary, we felt comfortable with that at that time. However, over the past year, with the connection of the roads, it has significantly picked up. The overall traffic is increased, which is to be expected and will eventually die off. But I would say that what we're seeing now is higher speeds. And I understand that, with limited amount of time to really assess the situation, I commend the police department for trying to get a sense of what's going on. But as somebody who lives right there, I am seeing it constantly.
Hi,
I've
can I help
seen
you?
the speed
sorry,
radar
Spanish?
trailer hit 53
No,
miles
I
per
don't.
hour.
No,
I'm sorry,
oh.
somebody who clearly saw it and decided to
Oh,
just run it.
We're in the middle of a meeting, so I have
Speeds
to,
are pretty.
what can I help you with?
I've been passed 3 times in the past year by 3 separate individuals that I perceive to be residents of Winters, not related to construction, not related to farming.
8 horas,
Eight-
And I
eight?
also witnessed
8 hours,
being upset
8 hours?
Yeah.
on the right.
un
This
servicio
is extremely concerning
a la comunidad.
traffic behavior,
Un
and it
service,
has changed significantly since we have moved.
a la
To give you a little
comunidad.
background on what I do,
I don't, I'm not understanding. I'm sorry.
No, good.
Air Force Base with the hospital there. What I witness in my role is we are always weighing the question of what does it take to implement actions that we know can influence human behavior before something bad happens. And that's something that we deal with, and I see that you're all trying to answer that question too, but I'm just curious at, what's the threshold? We say we're going to watch and wait, and we have concerned citizens who are telling you, and some of the traffic studies are showing you that there's a change in behavior. So I, as a parent and citizen, would prefer that we start looking at a multifaceted approach. I appreciate the signage, but the reality is that doesn't really change behavior so much as something a little bit stronger. So I appreciate the increased police presence, but I know that there are limits to what you are able to do, and your services are probably needed elsewhere, and understand that that's a limitation as well. So I would really love to see a combination of speed humps, stop signs, increased signage, whatever you think. I really think the speed humps should be considered. We all know they're an annoyance, but it does slow some folks down. But I think we can start with the signage, but I really would appreciate if you consider that there has been a change in behavior, and it is fairly consistent, and it is happening from our own citizens, not just the construction folks or the people in the big rigs. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you for your time.
Sure, thank you, Elizabeth. Tracy, anybody else?
Yes, Nancy Pignataro.
Okay, Nancy, are you there?
I'm here, thank you. Thanks for listening and thank you for putting this on the agenda and really taking the time to create a police presence because it has made a difference over the past couple weeks. So thank you. But just to I do echo all the comments before me, and I just want to add one thing when considering solutions is how this street is used. Obviously, it's a school zone. Lots of kids are walking when school returns. At the elementary level, they're encouraging kids to ride their bikes and walk these days. It's a program that they've been encouraging. So please consider that because it's not safe for these students to be on Neiman during busy hours. Also, the street is used by many for recreation as far as exercise, running, walking, biking, walking their dogs. So the street is not used like some other streets here throughout winters. So I just want to add that. And it has changed since 2019. Since that study, it's changed a lot, and that's because of the traffic and the way that all the new homes now, all the people going in and out for work. And as you're doing your studies, and I know there's not a perfect solution that's going to happen right away. It is a lot of citizens who are speeding, but if we can try to talk to the construction guys, because at about 6:45, 6:50, 6:59, they're flying, and I think a couple people are late for work. So if there's something we can do to cut down the speeding from all the construction, that can help too. Waste management. I saw a waste management truck fly by at 45 miles per hour, I believe. And if there was a kid that jumped in front of him or walked in a car or something, he wasn't stopping anytime soon. He was not going to be able to stop. And like Elizabeth said, I pray that we can come up with solutions before something bad happens. Lived here for 15 years. There's always been some type of speeding. This is nothing new, but it's just excessive. And I truly believe that, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. We've been doing the same thing on this street since I've been here for the last 15 years, but so much has changed behind us and nothing has changed on our street. So I just ask that you continue to do what you're doing and keep it on your forefront of your minds to find a new solution to help change something on Neiman. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Tracy, do we have anybody else for this item?
Yes, we have Sarah Simmons.
Okay. Sarah, welcome.
Mayor Fallon and council members, Sarah Simmons. I live at 712 Hemingway Street. And directly in front of my house is a speed hump that I witness on a daily basis, slowing cars down. Speed humps are very effective, and I heard that the two reasons for not considering installing them on Neiman is because of the fact that they might cause access issues for first responders. I've never seen the speed hump in front of our house slow down a fire truck, an ambulance, or a police car, and I have seen many of those vehicles traveling on our street. They navigate them quite effectively and efficiently. And the other reason for not considering that was shared tonight was that a speed hump is dangerous for bikers. And it was mentioned that that was especially a concern at night. I have also never seen a biker struggle to navigate the speed hump in front of my house during daylight hours or nighttime hours. And if biker safety is something that we're going to be talking about on the streets of winters, we should be talking about how speeding drivers and erratic drivers and dangerous drivers are going to impact any of the pedestrians or bikers. I know a lot of kids are biking these days, especially because we have no other way to really get out, and they don't have PE anymore and they don't have play dates anymore, and there's a lot of kids that are out walking and biking, and we need to pay more attention to the dangerous monstrous vehicles that could smash into them and run them over and flatten them, rather than being concerned about how well someone's rented over. So I do think that is a very important option and viable option to consider, especially on Neiman. We've got a speed hump, two of them on Hemingway. There's a speed hump on Anderson. They work there. And like Elizabeth said, they can be annoying, but it's because they're slowing us down. And the people that are speaking on Neiman need to be annoyed in that way, and they need to. I do hope you come back and you consider that, even though it wasn't recommended tonight by Mr. Mitchell, maybe he can reconsider, and maybe council members will reconsider that speed humps really are a very appropriate option. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Tracy, do we have anybody else?
Let's see.
I'm willing to talk, but I don't know if my hands might go up on the screen.
Amy Roberts.
Sorry, no, ahora
Sorry.
señal de aquí fuera.
Okay.
I really appreciate everyone taking the time to look at this. My husband and I and our kids have been wonderfully loving living here for the last 18 years. We live on Griffin Way. When it was a dead end, right after Shirley Rumminger, had always expected houses to be built behind us, knew that, welcomed it, especially at the pace that it went. But the problem that has come is that all these studies have happened prior to these homes being inhabited. So people weren't using these streets. And I'm not just looking at now, I'm looking at down the road. Once the linear park goes into place, once these other homes are being built, once there's a sports complex, we need to create a solution for not only today, but down the road. And, you know, I'm sorry, but if I'm in your neighborhood and I'm doing 30, 35 miles an hour, whether you live on Beeman, which is the main thoroughfare, or on Village Circle, that's unacceptable. There's kids, there's people walking, there's pets, there's anything that could happen, and then
it was approved, so.
Decreases.
Okay, so we'll process, like we do, check you as soon as we can.
At Moody Blue, with the oleander bushes, so it's hard to go out unless people are driving out in the middle of the street in order to turn left. During school years, or when soccer's going on, and there's people down at the school.
For your place out there?
Yeah, she says,
The
oh,
streets
Janice
blocked.
means it's ready. She
So
said that
we need something that helps alleviate us, being able to do our normal everyday things as well.
Let me make a note of that right now.
I do appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you. I think it's great, but again, we've lived here for 18 years, the problem's always been here. Everyone down on Neiman, down towards Railroad has always said this. The Moldons have always said this. Let's create a solution for now and later. Let's not wait till someone gets hurt. Let's not wait till there's an accident. We need something that's going to remedy this now. Anything else?
I agree. And I don't see why you say extra signage. So all we would need is 2 stop signs and 2 stripes in the road at Griffin and Village Circle. And that's it. I think a stop sign there is a 4-way stop there is going to definitely slow people down. So right now they go through Hemingway, and it's a free-for-all till they hit the roundabout. I mean, I was Saturday morning washing my car on the driveway, and a dump truck went flying by, probably doing 60. Ridiculous.
It's not acceptable to put our families, our lives, our children's lives, our cars, our homes at risk anymore. We need a solution today and for long term. And that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Tracy, do we have anybody else?
I see Patricia
Patricia
M.
has her hand up.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Patricia Moldong. I am the other half of Rhodos Moldong. For years, I have been witnessing the signage of the radar, that sign that you have up at the high school, and even watched it go down by a student because they were speeding down our street and had to wait. So that was it. A year and a half before it was replaced. Students will not ride their bikes on the street. Children will not ride their bikes on the street. It's too dangerous. So what you see every single morning when school's in session is children trying to ride their bikes while children are also trying to walk on the sidewalks. It's a very dangerous situation, especially as any person who lives on that street is also trying to leave to go to work, and you're also battling the traffic. That needs to be addressed because children are not feeling safe with being able to ride appropriately on the street. I have witnessed over and over again that speed sign reach 45, 55. I can stand outside my house and just watch it. It's increased so much since the houses have come in. We have been on this street since before Shirley Romansher was built. We have watched the change in traffic over the years. It's not getting better. It is definitely getting worse. And we still don't even have all the houses in yet. I've personally been passed, which never happened before until this year, but I've been passed on the street 3 different times in the last 2 months by residents of the street. On a Saturday morning, please go out there around 6:30, 7 o'clock. You will see the hot air balloon companies speed down our street, coming and going. They do it almost every single weekend. So you can blame the construction people, you can blame the people that live in town, you can blame the hot air balloon companies, you can blame whoever you want, but the problem is a problem. It needs to be addressed. I personally think that signs is a start, but I don't think the signs are a solution. I think the signs might bring a little bit of awareness, but let's be honest, we all took a driving test. We all know the speed limit of what it's supposed to be. People are not making the right choice. It is in your hands to help them choose to make better choices. That's coming from somebody who helps children every day make better choices. Sometimes adults need help too. I appreciate all your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patricia. Tracy, is there anybody else?
No, I don't see anybody.
Okay. Is there any comments from council or questions for staff?
Yeah, Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
One thing, thank you. Maybe Chief Miller could give us an update. I know we approved the purchase of a radar trailer that has equipment for doing a speed study. I know it hadn't been received yet, it's been delayed due to COVID. I think if we had, once we get that trailer, I know we did a speed study in 2019, we had a contract with the consultant engineers to do that. But with the new trailer, my understanding is that we can do some of those speed studies ourselves and collect more data. So I would like to see that happen out there. I know there's a lot of other places in town that are requesting the same type of thing, but getting some new data now that there are more people living out there and collecting that data, see if it warrants any other further changes other than what's already been recommended tonight.
We took delivery on Thursday. We stopped having a mark and a bin issued to it to the register. And we're in the process of that, both those projects right now. Then we have to do training for personnel. The back end, you're absolutely right. There is a onboard data collection system. It's not really onboard, it's done on the computer, it's just broadcast the data, with all the features. One of the things I had requested added to, and I'm quite pleased with this, is that it has a red and blue strobe now. So we can program it at certain speeds, a red and blue strobe starts going off, and it scares the heck out of you. It is pretty a nifty piece of equipment. We're looking forward to getting it out.
Thank you.
Soon do you think that'll happen, Chief? What's the time frame with all of those things you said need to happen?
We were on communication with DMV today about getting the bin issue and then getting it registered. And we're talking to Creekside Signage because our vehicle markings. These will come out sometime this week to take measurements and then produce the application. So I'm thinking probably about 3 or 4 weeks. Okay. Depending on the registration.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember New?
I'll ask the chief and any our engineer. What about bike lanes and painting? Many of the towns now, and I'll say
Public service?
all over now. You see bike lanes.
So
narrow
tomorrow,
the street a little bit.
come and see
narrow it,
Christine
which
upstairs.
all that I've read says
If you come in at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning,
And at
or
the same time,
after.
it's
She's the one that can help you with that.
Like
Okay.
one-way lane, and maybe we keep the bikes off the sidewalks so kids can walk to school, and
Where is the black?
the kids will have safe area to ride their bikes.
Come to
So
City Hall
I think
tomorrow
something that
morning
needs to
after 8 a.m. and
discuss
speak to
that.
Christine DeGear upstairs with Public Works. Okay.
I guess I'm bringing it up because I've read that it works. I don't know that.
We have my one. Yeah, I just heard it now, and also the first hearing, so when it comes to traffic, we have.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You come in the front door and go upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay, está bien, se quedó cagada la señal.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bike lanes, I mean, big, bold, fully painted, like, the full width of the bike zone might be, painted dark green or light green or something, so that there's no doubt that that's a bike lane and it's really there, to be seen. And lots of markings, that kind of thing, so that it makes somebody aware of the fact that there are bikes around there could be people coming out onto the bike lane, those kinds of things. Helen, you know what
Yeah, you're correct that when you narrow the roadway with a fog line, say, it does tend to slow people down. I live on College Street and Woodland, and you know, it's a narrow street with cars parked along the street, and it's really tough to go fast, even though people figure out a way to do it. But so we've looked at those ways, and the bike lanes themselves, you know, create an opportunity for the bike cyclists to feel safer. But then again, we can look at ways to enhance the striping. What happens is it becomes a maintenance problem for Public Works. But let me talk with Public Works about you know, the bike lanes. There is a bikeway master plan, and I haven't looked at it in a while. But I wanted to mention also there's a Safe Routes to School program that the state typically has. It looks at opportunities to give grants to cities to increase the safety when a corridor is identified as a route to school. So we can take a look at that also. So there's several ideas been thrown around, and they're all great, and I think we just need to spend some time evaluating them. And you're right that the more that area develops in the Northwest, the more traffic is going to be realized, and people seem to find themselves to be in a hurry a lot of times nowadays. So unfortunately, we all get caught up in that sometimes. But we do need to keep people safe, and we need to keep our kids safe. So it's our purview to look for opportunities to help mitigate that condition if it's not a good condition.
Thank you.
Okay, Harold, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I do have something to add in terms of use Russell Street as an example. I see cars blow through the stop sign on the cross street. I see cars passing right in front of the school, the church school. Cars will pass on a narrow street with cars parked and just pass right around them. So it's not just one street where this stuff happens. It's happening and getting worse. As far as people speeding, and they don't bother to stop at times. So it's a citywide issue, I'd say.
Yep, on a few streets, that's absolutely the case. Well, personally, I really think what Alan mentioned about the safe routes to school and the grant programs they have, I'd like to recommend staff look into that for sure, because that could give us some possible funding for some of these ideas that are being kicked around tonight for ways to improve the traffic flow on Neiman Street. And since that is a, kind of a major corridor heading down to a couple of the schools actually. So I think that'd be a really good thing to look into right away for some help with funding some of these ideas. And definitely the signage and whatever we can do to help slow people down, because it is a pretty good stretch there where I know people, tend to get going pretty good. So anyway, I don't think this is anything we're going to vote on. We're just kind of making recommendations to staff, if I understand correctly. And I think everybody's hearing what we're saying. So we'll see what we can get done. Pierre, go ahead.
Okay, just one other thing encouraged me, and I know a lot of people might just blow it off, but maybe a little public awareness of the fact that our citizens are concerned about speed, and if we put it in the water bill, remember, drive safely, look out for kids, all that kind of stuff. It wouldn't hurt. I don't know. It'd probably slow down the people that aren't going too fast anyway, but public awareness is always good.
Yep, that's for sure. Okay. If nobody has anything else on this item, we'll move on to our discussion items. Okay, first item up is Winters Highlands subdivision, the storm drain pond, and the oak trees. I think we may be back to Alan and or Eric if he's on tonight.
It's me there.
Okay. Alan, go ahead.
Thank you. Alan Mitchell, city engineer. This is regarding the Rancho storm drain pond. Back in 1992, the city's general plan included identified a drainage basin, and the city adopted an ordinance in 96 regarding the storm drain control fee for that drainage shed. The drainage shed basically is the northwest area of town, Winters Highlands, Callahan. Some of like Carter Ranch flows into the pipe that was built as far as with the improvements. So they don't pay directly for the pond, but they pay for the pipe that eventually gets out to Dry Creek. In 2005, the city contracted with Wood Rogers. They are basically in our drainage master plan consultants for over 20 years. They updated the reports and identified the shed boundaries. And in 2005 and 6, the city actually adopted tentative maps for Winters Highlands and Callahan. Those two large developments were conditioned to basically build a pump station, a storm drain pump station, which was constructed now. And Winters Highlands moved ahead first. So they're the ones that have built it to date. So the approved tentative maps basically were approved based on the assumption that all of their drainage would go into the Rancho basin, which has been the case. At this point, phases 1A and 2 have been approved for Winters Highlands, and phases 1 and 2 have been approved for Callahan. During basically the last 5 years or so, the pump station and pond were originally signed using hydraulic models from the drainage reports. Subsequently, the rainfall standards within the Yolo County City County Drainage Manual were revised to include a longer period of rainfall. I've got Wood Rogers, representing for Wood Rogers, that can maybe provide more technical discussion on this, but basically it requires that the calculations that show the drainage that will actually come out of the subdivisions, that amount of flow has increased based on what it was originally anticipated with the original master plan. So what's transpired is instead of that pond accommodating the flows for all of the development out there as it currently sits, we expanded it, deepened it a little bit to accommodate the 5 phases of Winters Highlands and Callahan. And we're looking at opportunities for how to drain the remaining phases 4 and 5. And to do that, it's become necessary to expand that pond somewhat. And unfortunately, that encroaches on some of the trees. As you know, in the past, the discussion came up about expanding that pond and basically removing all of the trees. That was not favorable on anyone's part. And so we looked at how can we least impact the grove and still accommodate those subdivisions that were approved with the understanding that they would drain into that pond. So what we've come up with is a way to take out a few trees that are on basically the north end of the grove. Tracy has a plan that she can put up, I think, that kind of shows, yeah, it's not very big, but so basically it shows what the ultimate grading will be for the expansion of the pond, and it shows the trees that would need to be taken out that's too small to see. So basically, I think we've identified there's 6 trees. We had an arborist, Homes by Town had an arborist look at the viability of the condition of all the trees. That report was attached to the council staff report. Also, the city had their own arborist do a peer review of that. Basically, they concurred that some of those trees are no longer viable. Some of the trees are, some of them need some maintenance and living care. So of the 6, I believe that 2 of them are dead, and a couple of them are in poor condition, and a couple of them are in good condition. So what we're asking for is consideration by the city council to allow the expansion of that pond. We've talked to Wood Rogers and asked that they try to figure out a way to reduce that number of trees down to 5 again. So they're going to take a look at that. But I took a picture, and Tracy has that too.
Before you go there, Alan, if you don't mind, just so everybody knows, I can assume, but I just want to be sure. On your little map here, all the green dots are the healthy trees, I'm assuming, and are the red dots dead trees, and what's the yellow dots? I mean, can you just kind of give us the lowdown?
Well, the rating is the red dots are dead. Orange dots are extreme structure to health problems. Yellow is major structure or health problems. Green is fair, minor problems. I don't know, the shade of blue is good, and really blue is excellent. So there's kind of 2 colors of blue the same, but yeah, the red is dead, the orange is extreme. So there's a few trees out there that are dead, there's a few trees that are in major damage. And then there's obviously trees that are in fair to excellent condition. So we wanted to identify those so council fully understood what trees are coming out and look at ways to mitigate that. Homes by Town has proposed a 5-to-1 mitigation for the viable trees that would be removed. So in this case, 4 of the 6 would be viable. So they would plant 20 oak trees wherever in the city council so directs. We've thought about the Linear Park. We've thought about maybe a couple more in this grove area. So there's different ideas, but they are proposing that as mitigation. It's not conditioned that they do that, but they're proposing that in good faith. So I've got representatives from Homes by Town. I've got a representative from Wood Rogers. I believe the city's arborist representative is also on the line. So we've got the whole team here to answer questions, whatever you have. Shelley, Tracy, do you have that other picture that I sent?
see. First.
She texted me, let me see what she said. First slide is ready. How about the second slide?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Basically, I just took a picture out in the field and put a line, drew a line so you could physically see, people at home could physically see what trees we're proposing to be removed.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Okay.
Having trouble pulling up that second PDF.
That may come up later. So anyway, that's all I want to talk about. I know there's going to be a lot of questions and discussion, so let's get going on that if you don't mind.
Sure. Okay, does council have any questions for staff?
Well, I have several people that have called me and emailed me, but one of the questions that we might just start with is the replacement trees, if that's what happens. How big are these trees that are going to need replacement?
Here's the picture. So I drew that line. So basically you can see the 6 trees on the right side of my red arrow. The tree closest to us right in the middle is the dead, and I believe there's one on the other end. There's one big tree on the right. We're hoping to save the one that's in the back left. So if not, that would be the total of 6 trees. And those are them compared to the rest of the growth. I just wanted to provide that visual for everybody at home. Okay, so the question was, what size tree would they mitigate with? I don't know that detail has been worked out. Obviously, we would want to require them to plant the size that's appropriate. I don't know if Homes by Town representative wants to speak to that. Anybody here from Homes by Town?
Probably not.
That's
Sorry.
Here. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, we're having a technical problem. This is Jeff Dempsey. I'm the president with Homes by Town. How's everyone doing this evening?
Good. Welcome, Jeff.
Good. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you. So yeah, let me add a little bit of color. I think Alan did a great job of explaining kind of the background and how we got to this point. And it was no mystery to us that when we were first conditioned to expand the pond and build the pump stations, we just assumed that this was per the city's design and that we would go forward and do that. And when we came back, I want to say 2 years ago, to have this discussion, we understood that the trees were of significant concern. And so, much like Alan described, and it's described in the staff report with Eric and Carol and the folks from Wood Rogers' support, as well as hiring our own arborists and hiring and then the city having their arborists, we looked at everything we could do to accomplish 2 things. One, build a detention basin that we didn't ask to build, we were just conditioned to build it. And so we've already spent several $1 million prepping that. But on the other piece is, we also want to figure out how we can save trees and do the best to make sure that that growth continues and thrives in perpetuity. So what I can tell you is this, my staff reached out to the residents in Carter Ranch, mostly just to have a conversation with them about the extensive study we have done. And the notion of replacing the trees that are alive with new trees, we're gonna do whatever we need to do with the city's arborist and the city staff and with the city council to plant replacement trees. But I think it's also super important to understand that there's been a lot of misinformation out there. Yes, the
the basin was designed where all of the trees were going to get removed. That is not the case now, and what we are doing as a home builder and trying to be a good neighbor and for the privilege of getting to build houses in winters, which is what we consider that it's an honor and a privilege to do. We're going to preserve those 18 trees. We're going to do maintenance to that grove so that it actually thrives and survives in perpetuity well into the future. And there are 5 trees, as Alan mentioned, that are going to come out, and we're going to replace those trees with the new ones. I think what we've got now is a program that is kind of the best of all things. We get to finish the obligation that we can condition, and we also make sure that the residents who appreciate and would like to see those oaks preserved, we're going above and beyond to make sure that those trees survive well into the future.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, is there anybody else that wants to comment on this? Is there any council comment before we open it up for public comment?
Yes, to the mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
A question for clarification, maybe Alan, you can address this. You said that it was the Yolo County, the drainage manual that was revised. Do you know when that was revised?
Jonathan Corner, do you know when that was revised?
Hi, this is Jonathan Corvers with Wood Rogers. I want to say it was around 2009. I can't say for sure though. I'd have to check. I don't know off the top of my head. It was during the period between when we first designed that detention basin of the pump station and when it got picked up again in the mid 2015, 2016 timeframe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Tracy, let's open it up for any public comment. And right now I see Rebecca Friday's hand up. Rebecca, you want to unmute yourself? There you go.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca
Hello.
Friday, and I live at 112 Lehigh Village Court. Thank you, council, for having this on the agenda. I appreciate being able to talk about it. When I was a teacher, I used to take, I wrote this so that I make sure I don't go over my 3 minutes, and I timed it, so. When I was a teacher, I used to take my students to the vernal pools across the street from the middle school to observe wildlife and study the changes over time. Pollywogs turned to frogs, and winter changed to spring, that sort of work. We all enjoyed the frog songs. If you lived here then, do you remember that you could hear them all over town? I do. Then in 1995, when we heard the Carter Ranch subdivision, I tried to keep the pools as protected space for our schools. I brought scientists from UC Davis out and we hunted for fairy shrimp and burrowing owls. We only found the indicator species of fairy clams and 1 den of foxes. I spoke with Kate Kelly of the Yolo Land Trust, and she had money to buy that land to keep it safe. But when I talked to the Carter Ranch developers, the woman I spoke to said that they didn't need to save it as they had done all the mitigation they needed. Developers talk like that. They had bought a few acres of wetlands in the Delta. I thought, well, that's great for the Delta, but how does that help my students and my town? After several conversations over a few days, she finally agreed that they would save the peninsula that had a small grove of oak trees. I don't know whether they saved them to make me feel like I had won something, or if they were planning on doing that all along. But the trees were saved, and that was good, for they were home to songbirds and an occasional hawk. The vernal pool was dug, ruining the habitat for the frogs and the clams and all the tiny creatures that live in clean vernal pools. But the rabbit and fox were still around, and the herons and egrets would still stop by. A sad decision was that an ugly fence was put around the whole property, and we couldn't use it as a place of study anymore. It became a place to throw trash and the occasional backpack if a middle schooler felt so concerned, so in the mood. But then it had to be dug deeper because the houses built north of it. Not much difference afterwards. Only a few rabbits lost their homes. They had to find new burrows. Then, a few years ago, with the houses by the fire and police station, the developers needed more water runoff storage.
The pond was dug deeper again, and the sides laid back at a deeper angle. There was talk of cutting the trees down. Many of us spoke to the council then, and the council agreed to save the trees, and I thank all the council members for listening to our concerns back then. And now the new developers need more storage. Houses have flooded and people are upset. Why would developers cover acres and acres of land in concrete and tarmac and not plan for runoff? I'm not a scientist nor a developer, but it would seem to me a pretty big priority. They could have built swales on every block to hold in the water. But no, their fix is to make the detention pond bigger, and so the city is talking about taking out some of the trees. Admittedly, 2 of the trees are dead, but could that have been from cutting them too close to their root system when they made the pond bigger last time? Or was it from compacting the dirt all around with their big machines as they went back and forth in the pool? Has the city ever watered these trees or cared for them? No, they've been left on their own. If these trees are cut down, will that compromise the trees nearby? And year after year, when the next few trees die, will we lose a few more trees until all the trees are gone? Where will the hawks rest then? I'm here tonight to ask the council to save the whole grove of trees. I think we have an opportunity to make a park that would enhance our town. I talked to a tree friend of mine, and he thought the grove was well worth saving, and talked about how we could plant native grasses and shrubs to help those trees survive. I'm asking the council to save these trees and have the developers work out a better plan for runoff. The land will never be the way it was, but we can make it better than it is. I've come before the council 3 times now for those trees, and I feel a little bit like the Lorax here because I speak for the trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Tracy, next.
Dave Adams.
Dave, welcome.
Dave Adams, Fox Glove Circle. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Carter Ranch Oak Grove has withstood 2 attacks over the last 20 years, and it's under attack again. Why can't this be permanently settled? It's just going to keep coming back for the rest of the trees if these ones go. The developer's under pressure to find the least expensive solution to their obligation to provide storm drain capacity. And removing the trees and expanding the Rancho Arroyo detention pond seems to be the least expensive option. But what's the least expensive for the developer is not necessarily the best overall course for the whole community. This stand of trees is a remnant of old winters and of the valley before large-scale development. It's a resource just as that, but it's also bird and wildlife habitat, a scenic resource, and the removal of trees can't be mitigated completely, even by planting 5 small trees for every mature one's cut down. That's not mitigation for removal of mature trees. In a time when citizens are proposing and placing initiatives on the ballot to help them feel that local government is more responsive, reducing this growth of trees after 2 successful fights by citizens for it would be a slap in the face. In addition to the tree issue, are people comfortable with the safety of the north side of the pond? According to the report in the packet, it's going to be reduced to the minimum acceptable factors of safety. Can we aspire to more than the minimum acceptable? In 20 years, the developer is going to be long gone. His profits are spent, and what is left when they're gone is what we're talking about tonight. If their phase 4 and 5 are not economically viable without cutting down these trees, is that the community's problem? We get what we allow. As a first step, I'd like to see the council place this grove of trees on the city's historic tree list. Simple. Then consider some form of permanent memorialized protection, maybe an ordinance or a specific resolution in favor of this grove, so we don't have to come back again. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Tracy?
Hi.
Anybody else?
Kate Laddish.
Okay. Kate, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Kate Laddish, 400 Morgan Street, number 21. I also have some concerns about that if we remove these trees, it seems like it's in a way a temporary fix from from a human scale, and yet it's certainly a permanent situation for those trees and the habitat that they provide. One of my questions would be, so what is it that's making it so that we need more space in the drainage pond, the detention pond, than we thought we were going to need? And so rather than looking at, so how can we increase the space in the detention pond, what's causing the problem? And so let's look upstream. I mean, if we're getting more runoff that has to go into there, let's address the problem and just understand it better before we decide about what to do with the trees, before we decide whether or not to increase the size of the pond. So for example, if we converted some of the impermeable surfaces within the developments to semi-permeable, how much of a difference would that make? Would that decrease the needed volume significantly? Is it that we're getting increased peak discharges, or is it that the pond isn't draining fast enough afterwards? So how can we look at the different parts of the equation? I think it's really important that we understand that before we make a decision one way or another about this. In terms of removing the dead trees, actually dead trees provide significant habitat. And so I think if we're looking at this as in terms of the habitat value and any sort of mitigation, that we need to consider that as well. That a grove overall has functional habitat value that individual trees would not. Other speakers have addressed the issue of for example, planting an immature tree, like an immature tree someplace as an individual rather than having these mature trees together in a grove. I think as we get closer and closer, as other speakers have said, we kind of whittle things back. We bring the edge effect on the remaining trees within the grove. And so if we reduce the effective habitat value significantly as we bring the edge effect in. So I know I'm not speaking for the Climate Action Land Development Board because I'm a member of the liaison from the CREE committee, but I know that there have been discussions about what the values of trees are. So I think that there are other organizations within the city that are having discussions about trees and how can we increase the number of trees that are here, both for the greenhouse gas reduction, but other some of the other important values as well. So again, in summary, I hope that the city will choose to understand the root of the problem better before we make a decision about the drinking basin and the trees, to understand what's causing the increase in the discharge, and then make a decision based on that further study. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Tracy, do we have anybody else?
Here, I don't see anybody, no.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more comment or questions from council for staff? Council member New.
Yes, Alan? Yeah. I was wondering, were there other options looked at? And other than increasing the width of the top and changing the angle of the sides, I noticed that the sides of the detention pond vary. The west side seems to be higher than the east side. I hope that's not just my perception, but I think I got down low and practically ground level and tried to look across. What happens if you raise the top edge rather than cutting away? How much more room do you need? And in other words, have there been other options considered?
Yes, we have looked at options within the pond, and those were deepening, steeper slopes, and obviously you're talking about raising the berm, I believe, so adding volume by going up instead of down. I don't believe that that's been considered. Something where the developer would have to find dirt, I guess, and we'd have to determine how that impacts the adjacent properties. So I don't believe that that's been considered. The other alternative is obviously on-site detention of some sort, hold the water within the subdivision. But I wanted to bring up that this plot has been identified as a drainage detention area since 1996, and it was identified in that report as 3.54 acres. And based on this footprint, we're at 3.5 acres. So I think we're within, what was originally intended. But you're right, unfortunately, it's impacting some of the trees, and we understand the concern with that. So that's why we're looking for council to present the facts and let council consider the options and give us direction moving forward.
Okay, anybody else?
The mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, just have a couple of questions or comments. I would like to have them look into other options further before we move forward with taking any trees out. I really don't want to see the trees taken out. I understand the reasoning behind, that option being considered right now, but I would like to have all the other options considered, Alan said they looked at deepening that pond maybe some more. So what's the outcome of that? If they make it deeper, will that be enough? If they make they're proposing to make the wall on the north side steeper, what about the wall on the east side as well that backs up to the cemetery side? What about those options? How much would that give us? Would we still need more? Would it be possible to put some type of a detention pond design into the, say, phase 3 of the linear park where we haven't done any grade or anything like that? Have that drain out to Dry Creek so that we don't have to take those oak trees out? I mean, I'm glad to see that the arborists, both, especially the one that the city contracted with to look at this. They're saying, some of the trees are in poor health. But I think, like Kate mentioned, even the dead trees can provide habitat. And I'm not one that says, let's save all the trees. I know this was something that's been discussed. And I think when it was brought forward to us a few years ago about the proposal to deepen it then, my understanding was that what we approved back then, we were doing everything that was needed to accommodate all the phases of the development out there, including phases 4 and 5 of the Highlands. And now I'm finding out that those changes weren't enough and we need to look at more. I mean, if that drainage manual was revised in 09, 10, whatever, we should have known that. How much changes we needed to make a couple of years ago when it was discussed, and it shouldn't be coming back to us again. So I really think we need to look at several other options that may or may not be out there before we make a decision. That would be my direction on this.
Okay. Yeah, who's responsible for revising that? Is that the state that revises those requirements, Alan?
You're talking about the rainfall calculation? Yeah. It's a county manual, so I don't know if Jonathan may be able to answer that better than me.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a county manual.
Okay. Just so people know, it's not us changing the requirements. It usually isn't. It's somebody else up the line. But I agree with pretty much everything the Mayor Pro Tem had to say. I'm not the biggest tree hugger in town, but I do think, the oak trees are important and I think they're worth saving. And I would like to see what our options are before we come to a final decision on this. I do want to mention, because Councilmember Lauren's working the polls tonight, and we did have a discussion about this item, and I know she's in favor of some kind of permanent resolution to save what we can of the trees, and if it's deemed that the only answer is what Alan's proposed tonight, like to save the rest of the trees, and I agree with that, just as the mayor pro tem does. So I think, you know, the direction I'd like to see us go here is I would like to see if there's any other options, and what they may be. And if there's not, then there's not. And we need to do what we need to do, because what we don't want is a repeat of the flooding issues we had previously. So, but at the same time, if we do get to that point, back to some kind of resolution or something, I would be in favor of that, and I know others would be, as far as something that would permanently make the rest of the trees off limits. And we can determine how many trees that is once we know for certain what we can or can't do. But you know, how soon does this need to be decided or taken care of? And what was the time frame for the next phase of work in the pond? Alan, can you tell us that, or can Wood Rogers tell us that?
Jeff can answer that maybe.
Well, I mean, I think we'd like to see the work done with the next construction season, so that would be April, May of next year. But Mr. Mayor,
we have a little bit of time. Go ahead.
I also wanted to point one other thing out, and that is, we've worked really hard to not remove the majority of the trees with the proposal. And even beyond that, the arborists have recommended that there's so much competition in this road that there needs to be some selective maintenance. We volunteered to do that. So I just want to be clear, because if that's try to say there's misinformation, we're not removing all the trees. Even though that's the way it was designed originally, we're doing this to be good neighbors, to make sure that that growth can be preserved in perpetuity. And so I just want to be clear about that, because when we say we're removing trees, it's a very small number to save the vast majority of that growth.
Right. Right, and I get that, and I, you know, looked into this pretty thoroughly myself to see just how many we're talking about and stuff. So, yeah, I think we get that part. So thank you, Jeff, for that. Councilmember New.
I just want to say that I agree with you and the Chair Pro Tem, and that when we're going to we are requesting, or we're talking about requesting an in-depth study, I'd like you to think out of the box a little bit. And the point that Kate brought up about permeable surfaces, I think that should be included, and really just not just say, oh, I appreciate the fact that my town is trying to save some of the trees. I'm thankful for that, but let's see what can be done, and not just look at the easy solutions. Let's look at everything possible. That's it, because I want to save as many of those trees as possible. And one thing that would help those trees a lot is if they were waterification. Oaks don't take a great deal of water. This last year was probably pretty hard on them, because they didn't get very much water anytime during the summer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Rebecca, you wanted to make another comment?
At our middle school, when they redid the grounds, we were required to put in a swale. And it's just a small area of land that the kids can't play in. There's a fence around it, and grass grows in it. Looks like it'd be a lovely place to have a goat. But it's a place that it holds the water and then, you know, when it's really wet. And I was thinking that could be something that they could put, and I said that in my letter, in every block could have a little swale in the new development, as a place for the water to go, because the water's supposed to go through the ground. And the other thing about a few trees, taking a few trees at a time, if they take these trees out, will it really compromise the next ones? I mean, they need each other. That's part of the trouble. And I know there's two that are dead, but they protect the next row. And if we take these 5 out, then the next row will be the ones that are exposed and their roots could be compromised. So it's just something to think about.
Hey, thank you. Okay, is there any other comment on this, or? I don't think we need to vote on anything, do we, Alan?
No, we were just looking for direction, and I think we have direction. I believe the developers team has looked at other options. This wasn't necessarily the least costly or the easiest for the developer, but they can, I don't know if they want to talk about those options now, or if you want to come back at a later time after they've been refined. I defer to Jeff and his team on that.
Hey, Mr. Mayor and Council, out of due respect, we will look at whatever you want us to look at. But to Alan's point, this option for us is not the cheap option. It's not the easy option. We want to protect the trees. We hired arborists to give us direction about how to protect the trees. And so I'm a home builder. I love trees. I like trees. I have oak trees in my property. And so we think we came up with a system to do that. I will spend more time with Alan and with the folks at Wood Rogers, and we'll look at these other options. But I think the option that we put forth here, at the end of the day, accomplishes everything everybody's asking for. It will protect the trees in perpetuity. We'll clean up the dead growth, because some of that dead growth is causing competition. And the trees that we're removing are distinct. They're a distance away from the main road. And I think that's really what we're focused on, is trying to protect the main part of the road, and do what we've been conditioned to do, which is finish a very expensive piece of public infrastructure. So we are not unsympathetic in anything, we're the opposite. We're trying to accomplish what the community is asking for. At the same time, finish our work, finish our project. Right. So we'll spend some more time looking at it, but I don't want anybody to think that this was the easy, cheap solution. It's not. It's the hard solution, but we're willing to do it.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. And who knows? It may be that that's the case, and that's the direction we'll need to go. But we'll see what everybody can come up with, and let this come back to us again. And in the meantime, I think it would be nice to do some kind of resolution, whether it's for all of the trees or the remaining trees, once we get to that point, so that everybody can feel comfortable with the fact that this won't come back at us once again down the road. So yeah, I think we've given staff plenty of direction here, and let's take another look at this in the near future, and we'll go from there.
Mr. Mayor, can I say one other thing?
Oh, sure.
And just for total transparency, we did independently prepare arborist reports. We were trying to meet individually with neighbors and residents in Carter Ranch. That option is still wide open. We're happy to sit. I mean, if you go through the reports in detail, again, I'm not an arborist. I trust that the two arborists who review the information, they're top drawer and they know their business. We're happy to sit and talk with folks about it. And if they see something that we're not seeing, we're happy to try to figure out how to incorporate that.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I believe I heard earlier, maybe Alan mentioned it, that the city also had an arborist look at this as well, correct, Alan?
Right.
Okay. All right. Councilman Ray Anderson, do you have any thoughts? Anything to add?
Yeah, whatever the outcome, I would not favor impacting the cemetery, which is through a pass-through now from, from the housing development across the fence, along the fence. Wouldn't want it causes that route to become, to prevent, for example, the service trucks serving that development kind of loop around and come down and then back out onto, I think it's Anderson Street. So I don't know that we want to create problems for the cemetery.
Right. Okay. All right. I think that's sufficient for this item. All right, we'll move on. Our second discussion item is Resolution 2020-58, a resolution of the City Council and City of Winters for continued closure of Main Street between Railroad and the mid-block crossing. Shelley, are you gonna give us a refresher on this?
Yes, Mayor.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
I have a location conflict on this item and I will not participate.
Okay. All right. Let the record show that Councilmember Anderson has to recuse himself from this item.
So as we all know, the Main Street has been closed between Railroad and Mid-Block Crossing for an outdoor ice dining area during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we have only been able to move into the red tier, which means only 25% occupancy inside the downtown businesses. So the Winters Downtown Business Association has requested that we continue the closure between Railroad and the Mid-Block Crossing on Main Street, and we set the date for March 31st, 2021. That doesn't necessarily mean that we will go all the way to that date. We can always come back and open everything back up should we have a good news on our pandemic situation. But it seemed more pertinent to set the date through March 31st, 2021, so we weren't constantly coming back to get this renewed, and there wasn't a constant sense of uncertainty with the businesses on where they could provide their outdoor dining. So what we're requesting is to continue to close Main Street between Railroad and the Mid-Block Crossing, just like it is right now, through March 31st, 2021 for outdoor dining due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, is there any questions for staff? I'm going to make a couple comments in regards to this, and then we'll open it up for any public comment. I do want to mention, and I think it went to everybody on the council, but I did see a couple of email letters today, one from Len Seacrest and one from Mary Lou Linville, and they were both regarding they're in favor of the street closures and the help it's doing for the business, but at the same time, we're going back to traffic issues here. It appears that some of that traffic's being pushed onto Russell Street, and people are concerned about that increased traffic and people blowing the stop signs on Russell and speeding on Russell now because they're being moved off of Main Street. I do know part of the ongoing conversations that we've been having with the Downtown Business Association in regards to, it goes back to our form-based codes and our downtown master plan of long-term plans of having more outdoor dining and these type of things. It just seems like COVID's kind of pushing it to the forefront sooner than we all expected to have this happen. And we are working on some ideas and thoughts with the downtown businesses and Chris can speak to this as well, Turkovich with the Downtown Business Association, with and with police and fire about trying to open up at least one-way traffic on that part of Maine to help with the traffic flow issues. So that's my comments for now, and we will open it up for some others to comment. Chris Turkovich, would you like to address the Downtown Business Association's position on this?
Yeah, we just appreciate the city and all the residents kind of allowing us to do this. It's our one lifeline at the moment for these outdoor seating. So, like you just said, Mayor, we know that we've had some impact on some surrounding streets. We're aware of that. There's been some discussions about that, and we're currently working on some plans there. So, for any residents or impacted people in the area, we're aware, and we appreciate you being accommodating to allowing us to do the outdoor dining, because it's keeping some businesses viable this summer and hopefully through the winter. So.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Tracy, is there anybody else that would like to comment on this item?
I don't see anybody.
Okay. If there's any other comment from the council, then we could entertain a motion for this resolution.
I would just like to make one quick comment.
Sure.
I just would like to say, I think that, I'm in favor of this, extending this closure. We put the date out there for that March 31st of next year, and it may not end up being that long if we end up getting another plan for traffic circulation through Main Street, or if we go to a lower tier, things like that, may change, and we may be able to not have to go that long. But I think for now, we need to do everything that we can do to support our downtown businesses and keep them open. These are really hard times for them. I know we're working with them on some kind of financial systems and other things. So, but having this outdoor seating on Main Street, I think, is something that they all need down there right now. So.
Thank you.
With that said, I will move approval of resolution 2020-58.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Biaggi and a second by Councilmember New. Tracy, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Anderson. Councilmember Lauren. Councilmember New.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Biaggi.
Aye.
Mayor Cowan.
Aye. Motion carries with 3 votes, with 1 abstaining and 1 absent. Okay, moving on to our new item number 3, and this is regarding getting into action as quickly as we can, some funds that the county is helping us to receive for helping our downtown businesses and others with many of the items that they need help with dealing with COVID. And I think, Iris, would you like to address this item for us? You're on mute.
Shelley, Shelley Zesby, and thank you guys for background information on this. We reviewed the contract, made a couple of minor changes, but she can tell you more about the specifics.
Okay, Shelley?
Yes, Mayor and Council. So the city has been working with Yolo County to have access to some CARES Act funding. This funding can be used for a number of things, but we are specifically targeting business assistance. We have some ideas of doing some rental assistance. We have some ideas of doing some mortgage assistance. And in particular, we are working towards coming up with a way to winterize our outdoor dining area for our businesses to be able to survive during the wintertime. I've been working with the mayor pro tem, and Chris Turkovich. We've come up with some ideas. We've worked on prioritizing some of those ideas. And so what this is a sub-recipient agreement with Yolo County for $200,000 in CARES Act funding. All the funding has to be spent by December 30th, 2020. And it needs to be spent on all the things regarding COVID. So again, rental assistance, mortgage assistance, paying for things that people have had to do to be COVID compliant in their businesses. And then also, for lack of a better word, hardening the downtown dining area for the winter weather that's going to be coming at us. And so in order for us to move forward with this, I need the city council to authorize the city manager to sign this agreement. Again, the city attorney has reviewed it. They made a couple of adjustments. And I would like authority to sign this so that we can get it back to the county supervisors and we can start accessing these funds for our businesses.
Okay, great. Is there any comments from council?
So Mayor, I'm not participating in this item for location requirements.
Okay, so noted. Councilmember Anderson is recusing himself on this item as well due to property ownership. Okay, is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on this item? Tracy, any hands?
Yes, Chris Turkovich.
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, just to add to Shelley's list there, additionally, some of the funds were going to go towards some of these traffic control measures that we just mentioned with street closures. That was from otherwise our list was accurate.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Chris. All right, if there's no other comments, then we'd entertain a motion to authorize the city manager to sign the agreement.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Biasi and a second by Councilmember New. Tracy, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Anderson, Councilmember Lauren, Councilmember New,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Biasi,
Aye.
Mayor Cowan.
Aye, motion carries with 3 votes, 1 abstaining and 1 absent. Okay, thank you, everybody. And we look forward to getting that financial assistance from the county and some help for the businesses downtown. And we're trying our best to spread it around to as many of the businesses as we can. So hopefully it'll help keep some of them afloat while we get through this pandemic. Okay, next up, we have the city manager's report. Shelley, this may be your last time doing this.
I know, because I think Kathleen will be ready to jump on board next time. So first of all, I wanted to let everybody know that the county did do a small business assistance grant program. 14 Winters businesses were granted $67,500 through that program. So this is in addition to the funding that we just approved the agreement on. So that's a lot of money coming into our city. So I've been working with Yolo County and the mayor and Yolo County on the subrecipient agreement. So we'll be able to get that moving forward. Also been working with the mayor pro tem, Chris Turkovich with Downtown Business Association, Alan Mitchell, our traffic person, working on some ideas on the traffic situation on Main Street. And so we've got a couple of ideas. We're working through the engineering with the engineering staff. We've also including police and fire, trying to make sure that we can do what we can to help alleviate some of the traffic issues down there. So that's an ongoing project that I'm hoping we'll have something on the next agenda to talk about. We also, last Friday, Lisa Baker prepared and submitted a grant through the OES Public Safety Power Shutoff grant program. We put together a grant and submitted it on Friday for potential funding for a generator for the senior center. We had a very short time period to do that. They gave us about 8 days from the time it was announced to the due date, and Lisa did all the work, and I signed it and we got it submitted on time. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get the grant, but you gotta apply for it before you have a chance of getting it, so we moved that along. And as Councilmember New indicated, I worked with Sam Shelton at SAPOD to get this Green Zone nomination put together, and we also got that submitted by 5 p.m. last Friday afternoon. So we had a busy work week with all the different grants in very short time frames, and we've been working very closely and proactively with all of the downtown business people. Part of our downtown business program that we're going to use the CARES Act money for is a rent and mortgage assistance program. And so if there are people from some of the businesses, especially those that were not included in the small business grant through Yellow County, if you have a need and you're interested in participating, you can always email me or call me at City Hall. And I have a list of some folks that I will be reaching out to myself. I think I'm going to try to start getting some phone calls tomorrow on that. And so if you know somebody that needs some help, have them get in touch with me here at City Hall on that. So, and hopefully this will be my last time doing this. So I want to thank the City Council for all the trust that they placed in me the last 3 months. I think we managed to make it through, and I'm looking forward to Kathleen coming on board and captaining our ship.
I'm sure you are. You can get back to your little corner with your numbers. I'm sure you're looking forward to that, especially with some of the fun we've had over the last 2 months. Some of the things we've had to deal with, and I just want to thank you, Shelley, for all your extra hours and time. I know you spend a lot of extra time at City Hall and working on all this stuff, and a lot more time with council members than you've ever had, probably in your whole 20 plus years crammed into this couple of months here. I don't even know if you knew all our names before this started. I think you did too.
I did.
But definitely a lot more time and energy for you, and you've just done a great job, and I just want to say I really appreciate you stepping up to the plate and helping us out until we could fill the position with somebody new, and we are all looking forward to Kathleen coming on board next week, and so we'll have a new captain next time we meet. That'll be really good. So
thank you.
With that, if nobody has any other comments, any council members, then we will close the meeting at 8:35. Good night, everybody. 8:37. Good night.